Durant pull-up jumper off the rim and in. Oh! And the Thunder win!
All right, come on, let's sing the Thunder song.
Wait.
When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder buddy and say these magic words.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Thunder Buddies podcast. A road edition, kind of, halfway, 50%. Darnell Mayberry is in Orlando, Florida, driving on the strange highway system, paying a toll every mile, although I guess he's got the fast track. Darnell, how are you doing? Please do not crash.
I will try my best to focus on delivering quality content and not getting into an accident. I'm doing well.
The second part is the most important part, for sure. Summer League. It's not a extremely interesting summer league for the Thunder. Have you covered what have they had about 7 or 8?
Yeah, something like that.
Have you covered everyone?
I believe I have.
Is this the most kind of useless one from our perspective as far as it's not that you have one guy who's going to be on the roster next year playing, Mitch McGary. He's a fringe rotation player on the Thunder roster. As far as the on-court product, because I know what you're about to say. You're about to say you've been able to talk to Billy Donovan, you've been able to talk to Kevin Durant, all these people. So that it has been useful in that sense.
Yeah, well, that's the second thing I was going to say. The first thing I was going to say is you never want to say that a trip is useless, young Slater, because next time the bosses are not going to send us. So, no, this is not useless. It's very useful. At least for this podcast purposes, I'm going to say that it's useful. But yes, the second thing is Kevin Durant was down here. Dion Waiters has been down here. Anthony Morrow has been down here. Mitch McGary, Cameron Payne. I just had an interview with Josh Houston. By the time this is out and people can hear it, my story probably will be up, and most people probably will have been able to see that story. But just checking in with him, looking back a year later of the decision that he made to forego the NBA and come and go to the D League. So it's been all kinds of stuff. The Billy Donovan angle, him coming back to Florida and being on the job 2 months as the new Thunder coach. So there's all kinds of stuff that we've been able to write. Reggie Jackson's been in town.
Did you get a chance to talk to your boy Reggie?
Talk to him or hear from him. I talked to him in passing, but I didn't really get a chance to sit down and talk with him on the record for an interview. And then he took off yesterday. I was going to, but maybe I want to try to get him on the phone now at some point.
Okay, a few things. You're right. I take it back. This has been a very useful trip. You can even shoot down to Gainesville and check out Billy Donovan's old stomping grounds.
Correct.
So it has been very useful. The on-court product, I would stand by my statement. But
yeah, the on-court, like yesterday's game, we're doing this on, Wednesday afternoon. So yesterday's game, Tuesday afternoon's game was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. Mitch McGary's the only one out there that's going to be on the team. He didn't have a real good game. He showed his improved shot and passing ability, but all those passes were pretty pointless because nobody on the team could finish. So it was just one of those awful summer league games.
We'll get to McGary and maybe a little bit more of the summer league. I'm interested now. You teased the Josh Houston stuff, a conversation you had. Obviously, I'll read it later. Everyone will probably read it. But what is his status with – what exactly is his injury with this pec injury he's got? His status coming into next season? I mean, what did you learn?
Well, Josh Houston, first of all, everyone's got to know the guy is – he's only going to pro for 1 year, but he's the ultimate pro.
Stanford grad, super
grad,
grounded.
So, he's extremely smart. And I'm not just saying that because he went to Stanford, but the guy really is.
Have one conversation with him.
He's going to say all the right things and be professional at all times. But with that as the backdrop, he said that he's pleased with the decision. No regrets. He wouldn't have changed a thing. Obviously, if he could have been a top 10 pick, he would have changed that, but that wasn't his reality. So, given where he was coming out of Stanford, he says that he's glad that he made the decision he did. stepped onto a quality organization, an organization that he has a lot of faith and trust in, and he feels like he made the right decision. I asked him about the money aspect, how much he passed up going the route that he did. And, again, just going back to him being an intelligent guy, a really focused and determined guy, he said he's investing in himself. He doesn't look at it as lost earning power or wages, anything like that. He just feels like it's going to be there, and money isn't everything to him. So
what about this season, though?
What he's going through right now.
What about going into next? I mean, does he think he has a spot on the roster? Did he say, it's not for sure? What?
He downplayed it, and the Thunder. Every time I talk to to people with the Thunder, they sort of downplay it and make it seem like he could be on the roster as early as next season, but they're not really committing to saying that he is. And he downplayed it, like I said, and said he's just going to leave it up to the team and his agents, things like that. I'm like, come on, man, this is a lot of money. This is your future at stake here. And he really seems like he's at peace with whatever happens. I think, that could mean spending another season with the Oklahoma City Blue or being with the Thunder next year. I think he's going to be with the Thunder next year, but obviously they don't even have the roster spot at this point to bring him in. So they got to make another move, whether that's Steve Novak or Perry Jones.
What's your guess? What's your guess at this point? I think they're going to try
to make a move and bring Josh Huestis in. And, in fact, after our interview, I joked with him, I'm like, come on, man, like, a deal's a deal. Like, they made a deal, an arrangement, you agreed to it, like, you got to be on the roster next season. He just kind of laughed like, if it happens, it does. If it doesn't, he still feels like everything happens for a reason, and it'll all work out in the end at some point. So he's content.
Yeah. What about his pec injury? Why is he not playing in the summer league? How serious is it?
Yeah, that's the first thing I talked to him about. And basically he said it happened 8 weeks ago. He was working out with the strength and conditioning staff, and it was basically a weight room injury. And he doesn't know when he'll be back on the court. So this is obviously a pretty big setback, not being able to work on his game right now. But it's a torn pectoral injury to his right pec. So, it's a pretty serious injury.
Yeah, torn pec is a very serious injury. Okay. That we've probably taken entirely too long talking about Josh Huestis, who, if he's on the roster next year,
it's fascinating, though. It is a fascinating story.
It is. It has been.
And he actually told me that he thinks more guys are going to do it down the line. Instead of having to go overseas, they can stay in the States. They obviously won't make as much money, but they're still playing against high-level competition.
Well, the thing is, people do it, but it's always second-round picks because first-round picks can just sign typically. Like, he could have just signed. I mean, I know they made a deal prior.
Right.
But there's, tons of second-round picks to it. The thing that made it rare was it was that first-round pick.
Yeah, and top 20, especially top 20 picks are not going to do it. And even if you're in the late first round, 21 to 30, you still don't have much incentive to do that. So
it has to be a situation. It has to be a situation like his where if the Thunder don't draft him at 29, he might not go till 50-ish.
Yeah, now that I could see if more guys feel like, hey, I can get in the first round, get that guaranteed money a little bit, and have a promise instead of being taken in the second round, or maybe not drafted, which I don't see that happening. But the other thing is sometimes you fall in the second round, you get paid more faster because you don't have that rookie scale contract. So it's interesting. Now I'm fascinated by that whole story.
Yeah. Okay. Other takeaways from the summer league. Durant just randomly shows up and then. He just held a media circuit. Where did that come from?
You know what? I think he really wanted to show that he was supporting the organization. I think he wanted to give an update on his injury and say that, I'm doing well. I am going to be back. Don't count me out. Don't count us out. Show some support to Billy Donovan and his staff as they, this is their first real public appearance as a staff.
Yeah, he's not naive, dude. He knew that if he sits courtside next to Billy Donovan and Sam Presti, then NBA TV is going to cut to him 18 times during the game.
They showed Kevin Durant during those games more than they showed the games.
Yeah, And that was the story of the game because, as we've talked about, I mean, the on-court product can get a little bland and blah at times. So, I mean, half the broadcast is them cutting to Durant and talking about Durant and saying, oh, he's supporting his organization. Hey, he's coming on at halftime. Hey, he's talking about Billy Donovan. I mean, you're right in that sense. And he's PR smart, and he's become very PR smart over the years. And I agree with you. I think that's a lot of what that was about. And, you know, the fact that he agreed to go on the broadcast, that he didn't have to come. I mean, he could have come and not talked to anyone.
Yeah,
he came and talked to everyone.
And one of the things I've heard multiple times down here in Orlando is the comparison to LeBron. You know, everyone wants to. When LeBron made his decision, everybody thought, "Oh, Kevin's going to go home and do what LeBron did." And everyone wants to make those guys out to be like they're the same person. But there's so many differences between the two. And one of the things I keep hearing down here, or I've heard a couple of times, is you got one guy holding his franchise hostage, with his opting out and not signing, not even talking at the moment with the Cavs. The Tristan Thompson situation and how his agent represents Tristan Thompson also, and just basically holding the Cavs hostage. And you got the other guy who's down at the Orlando Summer League. It's not even Vegas; it's the Orlando Summer League, supporting his guys and just being the ultimate franchise player and team player. So it's kind of one of the connections that I've heard multiple times down here.
Yeah. What did you think of what he actually said, his comments and everything beyond that?
It was typical KD. He didn't come out and say much. He's got kind of the Sam Presti and what I'm learning, the Billy Donovan syndrome, use a lot of words and not say a whole lot. But he can put on a smile and make you feel like he's engaging and really helpful and forthcoming, but really you go back and listen and he really didn't say much. But it was encouraging that his foot is healing, and it seems like it's progressing well. I think that was the biggest thing. Everything else is secondary. The foot seems like it's doing fine.
Yeah. Mildly breaking news. There's people on Twitter right now saying Doc Rivers is trying to hold a last-minute meeting with DeAndre Jordan, and there's thought that maybe they can reverse his decision. That would be interesting.
Yeah, they better try to do a sign and trade. I think that's their best bet. DeAndre Jordan doesn't seem to want to be there anymore.
We'll see. I mean, regardless, that's not what people came on this podcast to listen to. So, you talked to who else? You've talked to Billy Donovan extensively. I mean, I know what you're saying. He's not revealing a ton about anything next year. He's a good guy to talk to, but he's not going to tell you who he's starting at the 2 or 5 next season.
Yeah,
but I will say
one. He said that's the question for Sam. So, yeah, and I'm revealing. But he is accommodating.
One thing I will say that in your story that I guess has slightly raised my eyebrows, he seemed to come out. He identified Andre Robertson particularly and said, complimented him and said the team was great when he was defending the primary scorer of the other team last season. So it seems to me with that, I immediately would label Andre Robertson the favorite to keep the starting two-guard job, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I know you do.
Well, let me just say this, okay? I wrote the story. My name's on it. It's 100% me. With that being said, he wasn't fully represented in that quote. He did, and I try my best to represent.
Are you calling yourself out?
Yes, I am. I'm being fair to Billy Donovan here. I try my best to represent people as accurately as possible. But in this case, there was more to that quote. He went on and talked about the way of being a high-volume scorer, or I think he actually said shooter, not for a high-volume shooter. He talked about Kyle Singler being a good ball mover and being able to play multiple positions, things like that. But he said he definitely did say the most about Andre Robertson, and he was the first that he mentioned. I had to cut off the rest of the quote because obviously he's long-winded, and I can't just stick everything in there. So, but I did think that was the most important piece of what he said because it was the first guy that he mentioned, and he is the incumbent starter. And Billy Donovan, like he said in the quote, sees value in Andre Robertson. So that's why I had to cut it off, or that's why I decided to cut it off where I did. But it was more. He did go on to talk about two of the players briefly. It wasn't as much as he said about Dredd, but he did mention Singler. What I thought was interesting that he even mentioned Singler in that group. He didn't mention Morrow, but he mentioned Singler.
I think they like Morrow, just that burst, that scoring burst he can bring off the bench. But on a scale of Scott Brooks to 10, what kind of quote do you think Billy Donovan will be throughout an extended NBA season when it comes to everything, when it comes to, injuries that he may have to talk to us about, or, different stories or different things he will say throughout the season, on a scale of Scott Brooks to 10?
On a scale of Scott Brooks to 10, I would probably say an 8, because he's not going to be overly revealing. Like, he's not going to tip his hand or
on a scale of what? Scott Brooks to Doc Rivers and George Karl, then?
Well, I would give him a. He's not quite Doc Rivers. He's not quite Doc Rivers.
I was gonna say, give me a coach in the league like a Dwayne Casey. You think he'll be that good?
I would say Dwayne Casey. He's gonna be engaging. He's gonna be accommodating. He's gonna be funny. He's gonna have great stage presence, commanding whatever group he's in front of. But he's just not going to tell you, all the ins and outs of what's going on. But I do think when it comes to actual basketball analysis and explaining the why of things, I think he's going to be great at that, which Scott Brooks, basically was terrible at with us. I think he tried his best, but he just wasn't comfortable with it, or he just felt like he couldn't give away strategy or whatever. I think Billy Donovan is going to be much better at explaining strategy to us.
Yeah, and I think he'll be a little bit better at just being comfortable telling us stuff that that he knows won't affect game plans or anything, like telling us a behind-the-scenes story about, like, Kyle Singler doing something in practice, or, I think he'll be better at giving us more anecdotes,
right,
that maybe Brooks never did. Ones that, like, have no bearing on, like, the Clippers aren't reading that and being like, oh, we can scout against that. It's just a good nugget to fill a notebook or something. But okay, now let's go on court, summer league, and then Kanter. I mean, obviously we're gonna want to discuss everything going on with Enes Kanter, which is lingering over it a little bit. But on the court, I mean, let's just talk McGary first, because like we mentioned, he's the only guy that's playing that will be on this roster next season. You seem impressed by him. I mean, he's had one good game, one okay game, one not so good game is probably how I'd characterize it. But has flashed. He's clearly lighter. You said what, about 25 pounds lighter?
Yeah, Billy Donovan. Mitch McGary said nearly 30 pounds, and then Billy Donovan came out, I think the next day or a couple of days later, and said 27 pounds. About 27 pounds is what he lost.
Okay. I mean, if I was Mitch McGary and I lost 27, I'd probably say 30.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, he has looked lighter, spry. I mean, that's huge for him. Not even as much as it's huge for him on the court, jumping that and running up and down and conditioning. That is as important as far as injury-wise, because, I mean, part of the reason why he may be coming down and breaking a bone in his foot is because he's, when you have 30 pounds coming down on that foot. I just think that led to the shin splints, the foot injury, maybe even the back. So maybe that'll help him shed that injury-prone label. What else?
I wonder how much of that weight he picked up because of the injury. I don't think the guy is just out of shape.
I agree with that.
I think the injury led to a lot of that weight.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know how many lower body injuries you've had, but if you have a foot, if you sprain an ankle badly or break a bone in your foot, you just can't be active for a while. And you're sitting on the couch and you're frustrated and you're eating a ton of potato chips and you're right. So I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, even KD the other day, he's like, he clearly looks bigger, but he feels like he's gained maybe some of the wrong weight and he needs to lose weight, he said. So, he had not the same injury, but also a foot injury, a broken bone in his foot, and it negatively affected him too. So it just happened.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that with Durant, as far as his foot goes, he's been sending out a ton of Snapchat videos of his workouts, and he's shooting flat-footed jumpers. He was jumping a little bit off of them, running on that crazy anti-gravity treadmill machine, doing some pool workouts, some different stuff. He is clearly progressing. From what you've seen in Orlando, are you encouraged with where he's at physically, as far as can he be ready to go training camp, no restrictions?
I think so. He's already doing some more on-court stuff because he said he's jumping when he shoots, but he's not running and cutting yet. But he said that could come here in the next couple of weeks. It's only July 8th today, so I think he's got plenty of time. He's not supposed to be cleared until August for real full basketball activity. So he's got, and then after that, you still got all of August and then all of September before really ratcheting it up in October. So I think he's going to be good for day one. It doesn't seem like they've had any setbacks. He said that they're doing X-rays every 2 weeks. It looks like things are going well.
Yeah. That's, that was the one positive of them getting that surgery done even before the playoffs and back. When was it, about March? They had it late March?
Yeah, March 31st, I believe, was the exact date.
Very late March, but still March. All right. Anything else Summer League-wise as far as any of the other players? I mean, Samaje Christian's playing pretty well. I know you had a story about him. Dakari Johnson's kind of impressed me with the way he's rebounding, but, I mean, these are Oklahoma City Blue players next season no matter what.
Yeah, but the Samaje Christian guy, I mean, I really like him as a player, as a prospect. I keep being told that he is NBA ready now, and he could be, a third-string point guard on an NBA team today. So it's interesting that they've got Cameron Payne now because that obviously delays the arrival of Christian. The guy can clearly play, man, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him.
Would he have any trade value?
I doubt it. I mean, he was the 55th overall pick. I think he's probably going to garner more interest overseas than he would in the NBA at this point. But you never know, man. Go a couple years ago, Dwight Bikes. He was a guy that the Thunder was high on, and then Toronto snatched him up. So,
well, the thing is, the Thunder have his rights, which in some ways kind of sucks for him. That there could be a team like the Raptors or whoever, the Hornets, that want him, that think he's good enough, but he can't sign with them because the Thunder own his draft rights. They'd have to trade for him, and they may not like him enough to trade for him.
And the Thunder might like him enough to not want to trade him at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe view him as hey, if DJ Augustine doesn't re-sign and, Cameron Payne slips into the backup point guard, we're going to need another one next season, a cheap one. And that's where he could potentially fit in. But
he's a jump shot player. He's a jump shot away from being a real good backup point guard.
He can
defend. He looks to be really good in the pick and roll and not really good. Cameron Payne looks to be really good in the pick and roll, but he looks like he has command of the offense when he's running the ball screen, high ball screen. I was impressed with his defense. He just needs that jumper. He needs to really get that down. I think he's going to be a really solid backup player.
Yeah.
And then with Dakari Johnson, his rebounding really has stood out. But he's got no shot basically of making the Thunder. He's going to be on the Blue probably. But he really is impressive with his rebounding ability.
Yeah. Okay. The thing that actually we probably should have talked about earlier, it's really besides Durant getting healthy and everyone coming back healthy, the most important aspect of this offseason was re-signing Enes Kanter. And that still seems like a heavy likelihood that Enes Kanter is back next season. But it is dragged on silently, strangely, in this climate of every piece of information being out there. There's tweet after tweet right now coming out about DeAndre Jordan's soon-to-be meeting in Houston with the Clippers and all their pleading and this and that. There's so many different nuggets that come out during free agency that aren't just, hey, this guy signed. and nothing has really come from Enes Kanter and the Thunder. First of all, why do you think that is? I mean, obviously from the Thunder's perspective, that's just how they operate. But have you been surprised by just the lack of info coming out on this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I have been surprised somewhat just because Enes Kanter was so convincing that he really wants to be here, and the Thunder is so convincing that they really want him. So, I figured, hey, both sides want to keep this relationship going. They'll be able to iron it out and knock it out. But the thing is, it's restricted free agency, and it's different than unrestricted free agency. So basically, Enes Kanter is got to go shop around for a better deal. The Thunder probably has.
He may not even want to leave. He may just. He's going to try to use another team, basically.
Yeah, and exactly. He might not even want to leave, but he's got to be able to use that opportunity as leverage to go see if he can get something better than what the Thunder has offered. So I think it's just one of those things that takes time. And, unfortunately for him and for everybody waiting on all of this, the market has really dried up. There are not a lot of teams that can offer him the money that he's looking for. So he doesn't really have all that much leverage anymore. With Robin Lopez going to the Knicks, Greg Monroe going to the Bucks, all these teams are snatching up big men. Tyson Chandler going to Phoenix, so DeAndre Jordan possibly going to Dallas. And
well, hey, I was gonna say that Dallas may have an offer sheet to throw at him in a couple days from now if this thing keeps snowballing.
Yeah. I mean, the Lakers are snatching up other players, and
Roy Hibbert kind of took the Lakers out of it.
Yeah, Roy Hibbert, and then they got Lou Williams, and so really it's only Portland and Philly that can really go at him give him the money that he seeks. And why would Philly do it? Because
Philly wouldn't exactly.
Embiid, Okafor, and what's the other guy? Noel. So I don't know,
Philly
man.
doesn't seem like a destination. And Portland, Portland just got Mason Plumlee from the Nets. They got Myers Leonard coming up. They just for some reason exercised the option on Kaman. Noah Vonleh. They don't seem like a team that wants to carve a ton of money into Enes Kanter, and they would have to. So, I mean, you're right. I think the Thunder really, in restricted free agency, the Thunder really holds all the chips at this point, unless some team surprisingly throws something at him. The only thing, Kanter does have the qualifying offer he could sign. It'd be very risky. But Greg Monroe did it last year, and it worked out for him. He was unrestricted, and he got a mega deal with the Bucks this offseason.
Well, there was a report, and I don't know if you caught this later, but there was a report that from my man Vince Goodwill up in Chicago that the Thunder has offered $15.5 million per year. So that's a very lucrative offer. It's not that far off from a max deal.
No, the max, I mean, depending on what the cap becomes, the max is probably going to be somewhere like maybe slightly above 16. So, that's right around a max.
Yeah, so
that should be, I would assume that'd be a deal that would please Enes Kanter's camp. But, I mean, that's the...
Nothing.
What?
I mean, maybe from that. And they're holding out for a max deal. It was the first time we've seen with a free agent in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, if they can't get it on the market, they're going to have to kind of succumb to the Thunder's side of the table. His agent, I mean, the one thing that kind of overlying this thing that people may not be kind of completely up to speed with, I mean, his agent's only client, his golden goose, is Enes Kanter. As far as NBA client is Enes Kanter. He's called him a generational talent. I think they're a little bit more than just agent-client. I think they're, friends in a sense. And the reason why I'm a little surprised that nothing's come out is because when Kanter was unhappy in Utah, his agent was going on radio. He was going on different stuff and, demanding some stuff. Maybe he learned from that, and that's why he's being, silent during this thing. But that's just that kind of is underlined, and I wouldn't be surprised. I think you may be right. They may just be saying max or we're waiting until maybe we can get Max somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't think Sam Presti is the kind of GM you want to try to strong arm and talk tough to. You know, I think that can make negotiations turn sour really, really quickly if you do that with the Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's necessarily being, strong arming him, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's not doing what he was doing in Utah.
Do you think there's other factors at play? I mean, I know I was talking to you, not obviously on the air the other day, and you were talking about maybe there is kind of an agreement, and they're just waiting for the actual cap number for like the maneuverability of it. I mean, I think that's definitely possible. You know, I mean, they might want to see what this number comes in as. There's been reports that the cap is projected to go up from 63 to people thought 67, and now it could be as high as 69. Maybe it goes even higher, and maybe they have even more leverage. But that's a two-way street, though. I mean, that cuts two ways. It could also mean, if they really do want Max, his number's going to be even higher. So, who knows what's going on at this point? I really think, ultimately, I think they're holding out for more money, especially, and Vince Goodwill is a good reporter up in Chicago. He was covering the Pistons for years and years in Detroit. He just moved to Chicago this past season. I trust his report. I think if he's reporting it, the Thunder really does have an offer of around $15.5 million on the table. And if they're not taking that, I think that he's just really holding out for a bigger number at this point. Yeah, and one thing to go along with that, Enes Kanter is stationed in Chicago. His agent lives in Chicago. His agency is in Chicago. They're all in Chicago right now. So that kind of lends credence to that report a little bit as well. Kyle Singler deal. Go ahead if you got anything else to say on Kanter.
Just the one thing, I mean, because I think we both get questions on Twitter every single day about an Enes Kanter update. It's going to get done. One way or another, it's going to get done. I don't think there's anything to worry about. Like, again, it's restricted free agency, not unrestricted free agency. He's probably just playing the market right now, playing the field, trying to see how much he can get. At the end of the day, the Thunder can still match with any offer, and they plan to. They've said that time and time again. So everyone who might be panicking about it or worried about it, concerned about it, it's going to get done.
Yeah, and that part of it also is probably scaring away anyone that was even thinking about trying to sign Kanter.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that, I mean, they should be pretty assured that the Thunder are probably going to match it.
No doubt.
Yeah. But from what I've heard, it's basically that the end result's going to be the same. It's just what path is it going to be to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, the Kyle Singler deal. I don't think we've talked about since I don't think we've had a podcast since it came down. 5 for what probably it's under 25, but it's near 25. So it's about $5 million a year or so.
Yeah, it's a little under $5 million a year. And it's 4 years with an option. So yeah. I don't think that it's nearly as bad as some people made it out to be.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the escalating of everything, cap-wise. All right. NBA-wide free agency, what surprised you the most? What deal surprised you the most?
I don't think there was any one deal. There were so many guys that's getting so much money that, I mean, they're all pretty surprising at this point. Like, Tyson Chandler's still been able to command that much money from Phoenix.
Yeah.
A big surprise for me. Chris Middleton, I know he's like this new wave player that people are in love with, analytically, but let me just be completely candid here. I didn't watch a ton of Milwaukee Bucks games last year, so I really can't speak to it. But for him to get, $70 million, that's a little surprising to me. DeMarre Carroll getting that money, like I knew he was going to get paid. I didn't think he was going to get paid like that. So like $15 million a year. But like I said, this money, with the cap going up, all this money is funny money anyway. So it's not what we once thought.
Yeah. The Wes Matthews contract surprised me a
that's
little bit.
A good one. That's a good one. A guy coming off an Achilles injury. That is a really good point.
Yeah, because an Achilles is a scary, scary thing. I mean, it's I was reading something about it the other day. It's basically like a rubber band, and if you snap the rubber band, like you could tie the rubber band back together, but it'll never be what it was before the snap. Not to disgust anyone here, but they were talking about the Kings paying him like $16 million a year, which is more than he was even demanding. Which, by the way, I mean, I guess if we just want to quickly do winners and losers of free agency, the Kings are probably the obvious loser.
Biggest loser.
Biggest loser, next to the Clippers. Unless this thing turns around, obviously. But and then winner, would you just go Spurs, obviously? I mean, is that obvious to you?
Yeah.
Do you like Aldridge fit there?
David West. I mean, they re-signed Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard. I mean, they've had a hell of an offseason.
Yeah, and in a climate where people are getting just like mega bucks over what you'd think, all these guys to the Spurs are taking cuts. You know, Duncan will take less than he could have got. Danny Green took less than he could have got. David West gives up $11 million to play there.
Yeah, and then they bring Manu Ginobili comes back. So, I mean, I don't think they could have had a better offseason. They do lose Corey Joseph, but, you know, I mean, they still got Tony Parker and Patty Mills still there?
Yes.
So, there you go.
Okay, before we leave, you're way too early NBA title favorite next season. Is it still the Warriors? Have the Spurs hopped them? Are you on the Thunder bandwagon? As far as title favorites, who would you label? Or Cavs, I guess. Vegas will say Cavs.
I mean, we don't know Durant. We don't know how Billy Donovan is coaching. You know, there's a lot of question marks with this team. But I only think there's probably 5 title contenders.
Warriors, Spurs, Thunder, Cavs. Who's your 5th?
I would put probably maybe I was thinking 4. Maybe the Bulls. I'll probably put as 5th in there.
You always put the Bulls there. It's unbelievable.
I do always put the Bulls, and you know what? They're gonna get it right eventually.
I know whose offseason you love. I'm surprised you didn't put them there. Memphis.
Yeah, I've been on Twitter raving about Memphis. You know, I thought they were going to Mo Williams, which would have really helped give them more shooting, which they still don't really have. But getting Brandon Wright and re-upping Marc Gasol, I mean, I think those were obviously Marc Gasol moves. But Brandon Wright I love, man. And you talk about analytics, and I actually talked to John Hollinger. I'm not trying to name drop. The guy was a writer like 4 years ago, whatever. So I still look at him as sort of a colleague more than an executive. But, you know, he was talking about Brandon Wright, and I was like, yeah, he's a guy that you really should love, being a, you know, statistical guy. And, you know, he said, yeah, the analytics make him look really, really good, and he's going to do some good things for that Grizzlies team. So I like them, man. They're always going to be a tough out. So the West is really, you know, it's not getting any weaker, that's for sure.
No doubt. All right. You good?
I'm good, man. I think I'm going to get in the pool here. It's hot down here. And then I'm going to write my Josh Houston story.
All right. We'll look forward to it. And then we'll probably talk again at some point when Summer League wraps up, when the Canner situation maybe plays itself out. We'll chat again soon. See ya.
Durant, pull-up jumper, off the rim, and the Thunder win!
Oh, come on, let's sing the Thunder song. When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder buddy and say these magic words.